Thank you, Chairman Roberts, Ranking Member Stabenow. Thank you to this very distinguished panel today. Thanks for spending the time here with us. Everyone knows that protecting the integrity and security of our food and ag infrastructure is of utmost importance. That's important to a guy like me from a state like Montana, where it's our #1 industry. As we look at the face of threats to agriculture and human health, I applaud your insights, your testimony, and the ability to discuss this. Assets towards this end across the federal government, including the Rocky Mountain Research Lab, a little-known research lab perhaps nationally, but well-known within those who engage in this fight every day. It's in a state-of-the-art facility, a biomedical research facility in Hamilton, Montana, just south of Missoula. In fact, a fascinating history dating back to 1928 when researchers went out looking for the cause of the Rocky Mountain spotted fever. And that was really the genesis of this laboratory. They've played a critical role in protecting our nation from fighting zoonotic diseases to conducting essential research on the Ebola vaccine as well. I know the chairman asked a really great question on what keeps you up at night. That's always a good question for a panel like this. Maybe to build on that, I'll start with General Myers. And first, I want to thank you for your service to our nation. In your view, what do you see as the greatest threats and the vulnerabilities to our ag infrastructure and food systems that terrorists or bad actors might exploit?
So I think when it comes to our critical agricultural infrastructure, it's exactly that. It's if somebody wanted to, it's bad enough dealing with the naturally occurring pathogens. It's another thing if it were to be deliberate. And what's interesting to me, dealing with groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS and others when I was still in uniform, is that here you could wreak havoc on our agriculture infrastructure, and you could be continents away before the consequences were known or felt. And the ease with which it's the ability to infect with pathogens either plants or animals. So wheat blast was introduced in Bangladesh, I think last year and the year before, 2 years in a row, maybe it was this year, it was 2017, I guess, through a shipping container, inadvertently, I think people think. But so that's a fungus, as I understand, that you could transmit other ways, and you could probably easily bring it into any country and infect crops. And once it gets started, it goes pretty fast. Foot and mouth disease, which we all fear, and for many reasons, is easy to transport. It's not detectable necessarily, and the pathogen can last for a long time without any special care. And then you just drive around any of our big ag states and look at our ag infrastructure, our production facilities. They are not well protected, so it's easy to introduce. So I guess what keeps me up at night is somebody seizing on some of this and trying to hurt our economy. In the state of Kansas, agriculture is over 40% of the economy. That's just the ag piece. That's not the retail and the restaurants and all the rest of the food chain. It's just pure ag. Some of the other states, Montana is obviously pretty serious business.
Yep, number one.
Number one. So,
yep.
So this is important stuff. And if you take the economy down, you create, agri-terrorism, bioagri-terrorism would do the same thing that terrorists today try to do, which is create fear in people's minds, which gives them less confidence in their governance and their political processes. It could have devastating effects. You could just go right down the list of things that we worried about right after 9/11.
So what mechanism or tool, general follow-up question, is the USDA or the federal government most lacking in order to be able to effectively gather intelligence or mitigate the risk of potential foreign animal diseases in advance of the new biodefense facility that's coming online in Kansas?
Well, there are several. I think first is just the intelligence piece of it, knowing what's out there, knowing what's likely to come this way, having people focused on that that have the knowledge about these pathogens, about agriculture, that can identify the threat before it gets here. We'd like to stop these threats before they come inside our boundaries, and our friends and allies as well. So I think it all starts, like I've mentioned earlier, I think it all starts with intelligence. We do not have the number of subject matter experts with the right clearances at the right places to focus on this. But as the chairman said, the intel agencies, this is not something that keeps them up at night. And I think if we had the right number of analysts with expertise like my two colleagues here have, that properly cleared, that they could identify these well before they came to the United States, or at least get us ready for that particular threat. So I think it starts there. And then I think, and so that's kind of left of the event. Right of the event, we've got to have the things that were talked about here, which is the research that's going on to try to either find vaccines or other ways to deal with the pathogens. And that is that's kind of a sporadic effort, as we've heard, I think. I would maybe sporadic, that's about right. A sporadic effort to deal with those. So it's across the board. I think HSPD9 is a pretty good roadmap, but there are not statutes that back it up. And we need, I would opine and offer that it's my belief we need statutes to back up HSPD9 and then hold people accountable when you give them funding for certain things, hold them accountable for the output.
Thank you. I'm out of time here, but I just conclude with one statement is we're looking at the possible, the risk here to the food supply and the safety of it and what that might mean to our nation. But arguably, even a very small incident could have just significant implications for the global food supply chain, directly affecting our farmers and ranchers. We date back to one mad cow disease hit was most likely from outside our country, but that we were associated with it, that banned beef exports for 14 years in China, as an example. And so again, it's the economic risk to the ag industry in this country that concerns so many of us. For it is a very, very small incident.
And Senator, I would say my two colleagues here to the left, it's maybe it's not the correct analogy, but we've got our finger in the dike. As things break out, we deal with them. And up to now, most of them, I think we think are naturally occurring, although some of them have been suspicious, but naturally occurring. They've stayed ahead of it thanks to their research, thanks to their medical knowledge and their work in this field. And it's thanks to people like that have kept it where it is. But intentional would be a whole different ballgame. You'd have to assume that would be a much, much more dangerous game.
Thank you.